Kelly, who recently got her contract extended, that just went out about 5 minutes ago. We'll go ahead and start with Christian Edler. If you have a question, please just let me know and we'll pass the mic around.
Hi, Kelly. First, congrats.
Thank you.
This question is for both of you. What do you think needs to happen for the team to kind of get over this hump that we've experienced the last 2 seasons going into next season?
I think the biggest thing is consistency. I think we've had a lot of turnover of staff over the last
in progress.
since we've started back in 2024, and I think that is the biggest piece, like in terms of having consistency, and then for us to add to that in terms of what we're looking for in 2026 is we want to still grow as a staff group to support the players even more so from a performance aspect, and it's just about, like, there's going to be humps in the road. Like, we're in year 2 right now and just completing that, and we want to walk before we can run, and making sure that the goal is to win a championship. There's no denying that, there's no hiding from that, but there's a process to that, and I think what we want to do is, yes, we want to get there, but we want to get there and stay there. Like, we want to be competing for that consistently, and to be able to do that, we have to build the foundations underneath that, and we don't want to spiral, as we know this league can, in terms of you can finish first one season and you can be in the bottom half of the table the second season. So we don't want to be that. So it's just about finding that consistency, keeping that consistency, and making sure then we keep growing and building on that.
Jimmy, what are your thoughts?
No, I think Kelly just highlighted a lot of different elements, of which I also think they're important. I think the foundational part is probably the most important part to me, and that's also the part that I'm in control of. I think we started the season off thinking that we could build upon the end of 2024. We had a good run of games, but then the reality was, like Kelly said, a lot of turnover, a lot of new personnel, a lot of new players, and we kind of wanted to pick up at 30%, and we thought we were at 30%, but reality was that we actually had to start at 0 again. I think that's what we realized throughout the season. I think one of the quotes was like, hitting rock bottom is actually good because that provides you with a solid foundation to start building. I think that's what we really started doing in 2025. I think ever since July, ever since the changes that were made within the club from an ownership perspective, from people coming in and like kind of just creating this very clear expectations, a set way of doing things, a set way of wanting to move forward. I think that was behind the scenes a structure and a real precise element that we needed as a staff, as an environment, and we used that to start building with the players. And I think what we've seen in the past 13 games was almost every game the same values, the same way of coming out of the locker room, the same way of getting at people, the same way of just showing up, the energy that we wanted to provide ourselves with and the fans. But I think that's been a consistent piece. And I think 2026, we have this very small foundation right now. I'm 100% sure we're not at 30% yet. We're at 10, 15, but we also know we're at 10 and 15 right now. And I think that's going to be crucial. Like, we'll start building from 10, 15 on, knowing that what we need to get to 30 to 50 to 60, and really building this foundational piece of the Royals. And I think a document was made end of June, which was called the Royals Way. And I think that's just what this is. And it's really developing the Royals way of doing things, the Royal way of playing, of showing up, of communicating. And I think that's just very common in new organizations in general. And to Kelly's point, we're 2 years old now, which at the age of 2, I think every child makes loads of mistakes they learn from. I'm not in the situation where I can vouch for it, but I do know someone that can. But I truly believe that's what we're doing right now. And again, it's learning from those mistakes, but also just growing throughout the process and growing with those mistakes to move forward.
Was there like a specific moment that was pivotal to this turnaround this season? Was it that Royals Way?
Yeah, it was. It was really, I think, end of June. A very good conversation was organized between Kelly, Jason, and myself, where we just looked at, what we're doing is not working. And it's the hard reality. I think as a coach as well, I was sitting and I was like, okay, like, what's happening? And I think they just told me, like, look, whatever's happening right now, whatever we're doing, it's just not working. Like, there's a reality. Like, we just had 13 games. It's not good. We have to change. It's like, how are we going to change? And I think a lot of stability and a lot of clarity was provided to just keep building start building something. I think that was a turning point for me. And obviously, it's going to be addressed in the room. Ali left us, and they kind of brought a group together. They kind of made people think like, okay, how am I going to contribute to it? What do I am going to do right now? I think it was kind of a moment in the season where everyone came together more than where people thought we were fall apart, and people really thought like, okay, Ali left now. What's going to happen with the Royals? And I think a lot of players in this group reacted so well on it and actually use it as in like, look, this is the one thing that's actually going to bring us together. And it's not about Ali, it's not about someone else, it's about the reaction of players of coming together and showing that togetherness. And I think if it's one word that kind of shows what we've done the second half of the season, is togetherness. It's just like people came out and they really enjoyed what they were doing together. And it was really a group of players that found themselves and each other, and they found a common enemy, and that was whoever we were playing against. And whoever was saying that we would fall apart, they were like, okay, let's show them we won't. I think that was really interesting about the second half of the season.
Kelly, congratulations.
Thank you.
This is to both of you, please, but 25 points this season, 25 points on the season last year. But there were differences this year. There were 3 more ties, 2 fewer losses, 6 more goals were scored, fewer goals were conceded. There was more efficiency in the way the ball was moved up the pitch. So I know there's a lot to change and to grow on and to improve, but what are you most proud of in terms of improvement that you saw from the squad this season?
Yeah, I think for myself, I think I'm most proud of the coaching staff in terms of obviously how they took the message at the halfway point, in terms of when like Jimmy alluded to, when we sat with myself and Jason and how are we going to correct this? I think a lot of people maybe look from the outside in and go, well, Jimmy's not getting performances, we're not getting wins, and it's easy just to change. But I felt we had we needed a soccer identity, and we needed to build that, and we needed to grow that, and with new ownership coming in, and supporting all of that as well. Like their mantra is they're builders, and they want that to happen. They want to support us to do that. And I think it was a case of, look, let's just not necessarily start again, but what do we need to do to step in? And I think it was just about making sure that when they're on the pitch, it was a clear identity. They were working hard every day on certain elements of the game, and not necessarily concentrating on results. Because as been there as a head coach, and like you always focus on results, and I don't think we are as a club in that position right now, and we definitely wasn't come July. And it was for the club and the ownership, myself and Jason, was just go, what are our targets, what are our goals for the end of the season, and I think that really spilled out into the performances on the season, on the second half of the season. And I'm most proud of just how the players have adapted. They've been great. And it was something they were craving. Like they really, really wanted it. They want to learn every day. They want to work hard for each other. And I think what the coaching staff and Jimmy did was just give them clarity. This is the direction. This is the way we're going to go. This is the way we're going to play. This is who we're going to be. And that's how we're building the Royals way. Yes, there'll be documentation around it, but who are we? What do we look like? How do we show that to the people that are on the outside? And I'm just most proud of, like I said, what the coaching staff have done to really turn that around, but how the players have adapted to that too.
Want me to answer it as well?
Please. Yeah, what are you most proud of in terms of improvement?
I think just making it very particular. I think players like Anuria, players like Yanni, that in the first half of the season, they went through a lot. It was really rough for them. It was really hard to kind of get adapted to the league in a team that wasn't performing, in an environment that wasn't functioning to 100%. And they found themselves a lot of miles away from home, a lot of miles away from family, friends, and I think the resilience they showed to show up in the second half of the season, because I think I just named 2 players and names that completely transformed the second half of the season. They just showed up completely different than they did in the first half, and everything that people were saying about them that they weren't good at, all of a sudden became strengths in the second half of the season. We have a right fullback who scored plenty of goals, which I don't think any right fullback did in this league. We have a left fullback who is probably the less physical or the least physical one in the league, if you just look at it. And she is on the third highest defensive duels won in the league. I mean, like, there's a statistic that if we turn back to June, I don't think anyone would be telling us that we would reach these statistics with these kind of players. But I think that's kind of a reflection of what this group is, and I think you're hearing it right now. The one red thing or the one red line throughout the whole season was this group of players found joy and fun within the group and by being together, and it was them against everyone. I think once we found the connection, once we found the collaboration, it was us against everyone, and that made it quite easy. I think I said in August, I said, like, we were the team that everyone thought they could beat, and we became a team that everyone wanted to beat. Like, when we went on this streak, when we were like having good results, all of a sudden teams were like actually set on beating us, whilst previously they would just go to Utah to get 3 points and get out of market again. And I think that was a great change.
You mentioned Yanni. You mentioned, take any one of the international players. And I don't know if that was something that, as you evaluated the slow starts, that it is something where you have international players that come in and have to acclimate to the NWSL. And I hope I'm not misrepresenting something that you said, I think Sunday during the post-game presser, but is that something looking forward where you're going to look more internal into players who have had experience in the NWSL? And then I guess the follow-up to that is you have a new head of recruitment that's coming in that's more connected, as far as I understand it, internationally. How will that work out? And just, thoughts on how you'll fill positions with players going forward.
Yeah, I definitely think the one word that we used to kind of evaluate and what we want going forward is experience. Whether that's players, whether that's staff, we need experience in the building to take us from here to here. This league is a completely different animal to any other league in the world. It truly is, and I think we've just lacked experience of that. And I think looking forward, it's just we need to bring in that experience. And Harvey's been in now a couple of months, and yes, he actually has a really good knowledge of the American game, just because it was somewhere Manchester United looked very heavily in the college game, looked really heavily of players that are over here. So he actually has a really, really good knowledge of the game. And like, I think he's been on the road quite a bit already, just to make sure he's still doing that side of things to make sure that, like we said, we need qualities in certain positions, and he needs to find those for us. And yes, they've got their player profiles and everything. He's got them to work with, and that's what's nice is we have someone in that role that's being proactive in recruitment, that we can really focus on the other things. Whereas before it was myself, it was Jimmy, it was Connor, and that was it. Like, you're trying to do recruitment plus your full-time job. So I think that's going to be a huge benefit to us in terms of making sure that we can really grow and bring that experience in.
You kind of mentioned it a bit there with how unique the league is, but neither of you are from Utah. Coming here to this team was the first time you'd lived in the United States in general. As you look forward, now that you have an extension and you'll be here for a while, what have these first couple of years been like, just adapting to life in Salt Lake City?
Adapting to Salt Lake City, I think it's been extremely easy. Like, for me, like, the support the club have given, the people within the club, and just the people in Utah, like, they truly are amazing. Like, I moved here with a 3-month-old baby, and it was like, well, and having no family around me, I was like, how am I going to do this? But the support of the club has been amazing. But in terms of, it was an adaptation to the league. It was, you have to learn it quickly. And I know one of the reasons that I was brought in is because I've done a lot of other roles in my career, and I can bring that experience to help obviously build and grow. And I think, yes, that's good, and sometimes that's a downfall, because especially when I first came in, I was on the ground heavily, instead of probably having more of a bird's eye view and just kind of going, right, this is how we're going to be and this is how we're going to work. And I think that was one of the big changes in July as well, is how do we get the right support around this guy for the team to be successful? And yes, that's me, but it's not me being on the ground every day with them. And it's like, okay, how can I do that? And how can I build the processes, the structure, the values, everything, so that these guys, the players, have expectations, standards to work to every day, but also knowing that I will lean into the sporting side because obviously of my background and experience.
I said it many times before. I think when you're from Europe, it's always exciting to go out of market and you fly into an LA, you fly into San Diego, you go and play a game. But I'm always very happy coming back, and I think that's just a feeling that has been created throughout this 1 year and a half that I've been here. I am very grateful that I had the opportunity to bring in family this year. My brother, my dad, my sister, they all flew in, and they all have the same image about these players, and it's peaceful, it's quiet, but it's also driven by families and people that actually mean the best with other people. I think that's the biggest thing of our fans as well. We had a very rough start of the season, probably still expressing it in the very nicest way. But the one thing that was always there were fans, family, whatever happened. I don't think we heard many boos in the stadium where if this kind of situation would happen in Europe, I think we all know how people would react. If this would happen in different markets in this league, we know how everyone would react. And actually, we found a solid foundation. We found a solid base of people that actually want us to succeed. And that's huge. I think finding that in a state, in fans, that's what you need to become successful. There's a group of people that will do whatever they can and will stay there for how long they can to just support you and help you. I think that's what this city is about. That's what this state is about. I really like it. I think everyone knows it. I've never really been shy about telling it, but like this is just a state that has such a variety of elements to offer to people. I think that's just great. And I think what we're trying to do right now, which is not always easy, and it's the same kind of story. You've been in the league for 2 years now. You kind of just want to create a product that's sellable to the outside, because as much as we want experience from the league, you still have to sell it. You're competing against markets that have been in the league for 10, 12, 13 years, and probably every now and then just suit more a very young style of living for players. I think in LA, if you say LA to any European players, they will go like, oh, like that's from the movies, that's from the songs, that's from anywhere. And I think they really have to discover what this state is about. But the one thing everyone says, and I think Claudia Zanoz is a perfect example of it, once you're here, it's very hard to leave. It's very hard to leave. And you kind of just get stuck. And I think stuck for the right reasons. And I think that's what this state is about. And I think that's what we're trying to sell to players as well. And the most important part about this all is once you start liking it, once you start appreciating it, it's easier for us to work with. If you're not feeling well in the state, you're not feeling well in the culture, the environment, it just becomes so hard. And I think what we're really looking at is players that want to be here. And moving forward, we want to create a solid foundation only with people that actually want to be in this city, want to be in this state. They see the value of the state, they see the value of the city, and they really want to build something with us. And we have some great examples of a Kate Del Fava, of a Page, that they've all said it, like, we want to be here. Not only for the club, but also for the city. And these are kind of players that, you know, a lot of coaches talk about the badge and playing for the badge. Well, they do. And we just got to find more of them. And I think that's what we're doing right now, like really creating that feeling like it's a badge in the city that we're playing for. And that will create audiences, that will bring people to the stadium, that will bring what happened in the past few games. I think the Washington game was a very good attendance. People were really jumping. People were having fun. And they were having fun because we were actually trying to represent the identity of this city. Hardworking people that enjoy adventures, that enjoy the joy of trying something out, and that's what we want to be.
You mentioned Claudia there, and she I don't know if she's leaving the state, but she is leaving the pitch with her retirement. As you look, there's going to be more turnover this offseason. You mentioned the turnover last year, and that kind of played into the start of the season. How do you maybe help keep that turnover from affecting the results at the start of next season?
Yeah, I think you have a half of a clean sheet to start with. You have kind of a sheet where you can start writing and you can start developing something. I think filling the cleats of a Claudia Zanoz, I'm not sure who can. That's just the reality of things. But the question is, do you want it? Do you want exact the same? Or do you use this opportunity to kind of redefine a few things and really just get a new start in a way? I think, like I said, I think we have a foundation of about 15% right now. So we're actually in the right spot to change someone, to replace someone, to find something. And I think, I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm also not thinking it's the hardest job to do right now, which is putting a lot of pressure on Harvey, which is good. That's what he likes as well. But I just think in general, it's an opportunity. And I think that's what we have to we have to look at it as an opportunity. Yes, we're losing a great player, a great football player, but it also gives an opportunity to replace people and look at like, look, we've been doing this now for a year and a half. How successful have we been by doing this? And we have a full midfield that we can replace now, so we can just go out for something new and really make it adaptable to what we need and want. So I think that's kind of the biggest advantage you have. You were a new franchise. Very often you sign contracts for 2 years. Well, most of them are done now. So we can start rebuilding and we can start building from scratch. And I think with the draft not being there anymore, you actually have a free market and you can really go out and really be very, very precise of what you need and want. And I think that's the biggest advantage we have right now.
Any thoughts on that, Rupert?
No, just I think experience. I think that's the one thing that we can definitely have the scope to do now. And hopefully bringing in that experience doesn't affect, like the turnover doesn't have a big effect. Like if we did that with loads of internationals bringing in, it probably would have an impact because we know how long it takes them to settle and adapt to this league. But experience in this league, and I truly believe that won't affect us. The turnover won't affect us stepping into 2026.
We heard from Paige earlier that at some point in the season, she felt like things went from being maybe an outcome-oriented expectation to a process-oriented expectation every day. And you've talked about the Royals way and Jason and the Millers and them coming in. And we don't live in a patient world. So I guess my question for both of you is, how much patience is required to install new and detailed processes on the fly during a season? It obviously couldn't have been easy, but everybody that we've spoken with this morning feels like the back half of the season really was starting to kind of reap the rewards of those efforts.
Yeah, definitely. I think like you said, that's what shifted for the second half of the season. And I think we were in a place at the first half of the season. Like I said, we had a lot of new staff that came in late. We had players came in late. And it almost took that long for them to gel and understand each other. And we got to the halfway point. And like, I think looking at it in a different way, we kind of decided that, okay, we're not playing for anything this season in terms of, so we have the opportunity to become process orientated, and I think we've seen the success of that. And now I truly believe that now that's set up, we can continue like that, because I feel like it's gained a success. And we've had to obviously from a front office had to keep the coaching staff pulled back, because as you're competitors and you're stepping out and you want to win games, and that's great because we have that in the locker room. So it was easy for us to turn it to process orientated and go, just focus on building our identity. Who are we going to be? How are we going to act? So what we are showing from the inside out, people actually see that. And I think it was tough for these guys to start, but I think as we went through it together, the results really showed that. And it's credit to like the Millers and Jason, because they allowed that to happen. We could have sat there easily and going, you're not getting results, you're not doing this, we need to make changes, but they didn't. And like I said, they are builders and they want to build something, they want to be successful, and they know it's a process, and it's not just like you said, it's, yes, we're impatient and we've got to get it. We're 2 years old, and we need to remember that. And I truly believe now we're headed in the right direction with the right support around us.
Yeah, I think you're asking the most impatient guy how that worked out for him. So my biggest lesson, I think, is here's how we do things. I think we kind of assumed in the beginning of the season that we were in the right place to tell people, like, here's how we do things. But reality is that a history is required to be able to tell people that. And with the Millers coming in, I think from a corporate side of view, you see loads of stuff changing. Cybersecurity is maybe the stupidest example, but like they've been doing it for 10 years and it's successful. So let's just do it in that way. And I feel like that's really important for us as well. And I think that kind of changed in July. It's, again, the Royals way, here's how we do things. And just being able to just look at someone and go like, hold on, no, that's not how we do things here. And just being able to tell someone that based upon history, based upon things that already happened, it's huge. And again, like, if you do some research, and I'm sure you all do plenty of it, if you do some research about the Millers and how successful they've been in sports franchises by creating a solid foundation, something to build up on, making it very clear that it's a patient process of getting every single step right before you start running. I think Kelly mentioned like we want to step or walk before we run. I think we're really understanding what it takes to walk right now. And I think we also found a partner in the Millers to kind of teach us how to run because they've done it before. But it's really making sure that we understand every single step of the walking part before we get into this running part. And I think that to me is the most important part that I've learned as a person as well. And again, like you're in this environment where very, very different than in Europe, like you have to. That's also the reality from the outside. And I think you mentioned it yourself. You have to. But on the inside, very, very quickly, you also realize like we don't have to. The only thing we have to is create something that will be sustainable. And I don't think we're really making a sustainable foundation in the first 6 months. But I truly believe the last 4 or 5 months were about creating sustainability, making the right choices, but also creating this foundation again. And I think foundation might be the keyword of today for me, creating this one foundation where I can turn around at players and tell them like, look, that's not how we do things. And we're getting to a point where players are turning around to other players and go like, wow, this is not how we do things. And that is just because of the cultural part that we're installing, but that we cannot expect from a 2-year-old environment / organization to already have, knowing that we have that many turnover, knowing that players came in and out of the building. I think it's just going to take us time. But the pieces we mentioned earlier, the players that we mentioned earlier, with the Pages, with the Kates, with the Manis that have been here ever since the beginning, that will be here until, I don't know when, hopefully as long as they want and they can. I think those are the pieces that will drag us through every single phase. And I think they were the voice in July that told us like, look guys, like we need to do something different. And I think Kelly listened to them and she tried to make me listen to them. I think we ended up listening to them. I think that's the most important part, but I truly believe that's what happened. I think that's really important that we understand this piece where we really understand what it is, like what's the Royals way, who are we, what are we, and we start establishing this solid brand that's called the Utah Royals, and we start really narrowing down what we are and who we are.
I think you probably touched on it a little bit there, but just for both of you, you know, from the togetherness to the foundation, what are the things that have you excited for 2026?
Like Jimmy said, just building. I think it's like Cause said, we're implementing structure, processes. We're implementing culture, behaviors, expectations, and that's exciting to me because we can nail that in day one of preseason and be like, this is who we are, this is how we're going to be, this is how we're going to play, and really, really get on board. And I think there's the one piece that gives, there's no grey areas for anybody in the building. So there's expectations, there's standards to live up to. And I think previously there was definitely those grey areas in terms of, oh, what's she doing? Is that right? Is that wrong? Just clarity. And for me then to continue building in 2026.
Just in general, I think July was 3 weeks and we were able to, the last 13 games were based upon 3 weeks of really intense work and realizing what we did wrong. And now we're offered 9 weeks in preseason. So really excited what we can get out of those 9 weeks to kind of understand what we did wrong. And I think it's something that I've very often said as a coach, like the one difference between 2025 and 2026 is you're 365 days older. Players, organization-wise, people-wise, more experienced, hopefully also smarter very often. I think we're getting into this phase of the third year. A third year is, again, that's a year where you probably can start walking slightly faster already. Just still at a good pace and realizing what's happening. But I think that's truly what I'm excited for. I've learned a lot this season. I also think if I look at the building right now, being November and I look back at it in January, like in a completely different spot. I think medical has done a crazy job of turning this around. I think if we look right now at how we do things from a medical point of view, I dare to say we're amongst top 4 in the league. I truly believe that, based upon experience, based upon knowledge, and based upon the people we have in this building. And we keep on receiving that feedback from the players as well. So that's one department that we have set. I think they're very sustainable now. They're in very good hands. The Millers came in, I think Kelly made a very good case of like, look, if you look at all these teams that are now in top 8, top 9, here's what they have from a staffing point of view. And based upon that, I think the Millers immediately jumped into, okay, that makes it clear that we need a head of recruitment, that we need a head of X, Y, and Z we're going to implement. So we're doubling the staff from a performance point of view. And those are all investments that the Millers are making next to the pitch to make us better on the pitch, because there's this one saying that says like there is no salary cap on staff, and that's actually the reality. So can we make the staff as strong and as experienced as we can to kind of let the players feel like we're moving forward and we're growing? I think that's really exciting to know that we have an ownership group behind us that actually looks at it in a different way. We've seen so many clubs in the last 9 months that invested so heavily in players' salaries and the craziest trades, and we will when we're ready. I truly believe we will, but right now we're actually focusing on the right stuff, and we're looking at, again, the sustainable pieces that whenever this player comes in that's worth so much, she will come in and perform. And I think we've all seen plenty of players that went to new environments and weren't successful, and I'm not in the right place to tell anyone why that happened, but I do believe we are making a process where everyone can come into our building and be successful and be themselves. And I think that's the most exciting part for 2026 for me.
Sure, I can ask a question. I was wondering about one of your favorite moments this season, if you can describe that. And maybe if you can also talk about one of the hardest moments and how did you emotionally, mentally overcame that?
Sheesh, that's a loaded question. One of the happiest moments, probably Louisville at home. Why? It was a show off. There was a lot of context. Louisville coming from a trip to Seattle, like I'm very, very aware of where they were at. But just seeing our team show up in that first half and kind of just showing off, like really enjoying them, really finding joy in what they did and how they combined, how we created goals, how we scored goals. I think that was fun to see. On the back of that same, I would also say maybe very similar was Portland away. If you know that only 2 teams won in Providence Park and we're one of them, I think that's huge. But that was actually a moment where you see, like, to Kelly's point, prior to going into that game, we had a huge conversation about KK. And if you just listen in the past 25 minutes, you talk about foundation, about sustainability, about process more than winning. That's what happened that game I put in KK in. Is KK 100% ready? No, but how she's going to become ready is by letting her play. And I don't think we were the right team to kind of put in a 16-year-old and be like, look, you know what, go and change the game. But she did. And I think that was kind of like, oh, hold on, like, this works. I think that to me personally was like a turning point where I went like, okay, let's start focusing more on these small elements. I think it was just a lot of fun to see Manny getting a career high, to see KK do what she did. And I feel like it was just all coming together. The way KK celebrated with the bench, the way goals were celebrated all together, I felt like, okay, like we have this thing going on now. Can we keep this going? The saddest moment, I think probably a good and a bad was Seattle losing 4-1 at home. Just because, 1, I don't like to lose at all. 2, I think it was one of the highest scores I've ever lost a game with. And 3, it was kind of like the end of this first half of the season. I have to be honest, I was mentally just like, what's this? Like, what's happening here? And like, then losing 4-1, I went like, oh, like, okay. But again, like, a lot of good growth came out of it. And we realized quite quickly what we had to do. So I think that was just the saddest moment, because as a coach, at the end of the day, you're paid to do a job. And I was like, I'm not doing my job. Like, we have to be winning games. You were like, but then very quickly I came to the realization, like, it's not about winning. It will be about winning, but first we have to get X, Y, Z right. And I think, again, the saddest moment kind of led to everything that happened in the second half of the season. So it is true when they say, what did they say, sunshine after rain or something like that. I think it had to really pour on us to really realize, like, okay, here's what we got to do. And we grew out of it. And that's something I'm incredibly proud of the staff and the people in this building, that there was this belief, this sustainable belief. And I think everything that happened in the second half, I'm just hoping, and I'm really thinking, I'm not hoping actually, I'm knowing that we'll do the same next season. And that's nice to know, if you know that we had 10 results out of 13 games in the last 13 games. And if the league would have started 10 games ago, we would have second in the league, I think, or third in the league. I think those are all stats, obviously stats that come too late, but that are very aspiring for 2026.
Yeah, I think the toughest moment was for me is getting to the halfway point and just thinking, how are we here again? And I think that really allowed us to reflect, and I think it's a huge credit to Jason in how he came in and just kind of just helped. Like, he really lent in, and he was just really helped me analyze everything, and I think more so as well, just to kind of go, you got to come away from that, and we need to focus on this. And like, that was tough. Like, you get in there again at that point in the season, and it's like, oh, why? Like, and you're analyzing and you're thinking, overthinking. But yeah, I think that moment was tough, but it was exciting as well. Like, I like a challenge. That's why I come here. Like, I've never been out of England to live. I was born in Reading. I played and I worked for the club for X amount of years. So this was right out of my comfort zone. And but that's why I came here, and I want to be successful. I want this club to be successful. And yeah, so that point was tough. I think the enjoyment part for me, there's not really one moment that I can really pick, but it was just seeing people have fun. And I think we really did that in the second half of the season. We saw bravery, we saw people having fun. And that's, like I said, it's credit to the coaching staff and being able to put those processes in terms of what we're going to look like. But I think the message that was to the players before we started in the second half of the season was control the controllables. Your effort and your attitude, they're the things that you can control. But be brave and have fun. And they were the words that they needed to take into the second half of the season, obviously alongside all the tactical and technical stuff. But we didn't have that in the first half because we were losing games. Everyone was going in their shells, and we didn't want that. We wanted people to step in the building, enjoy being in the building. And for me, that was just seeing smiles on faces and getting results was the highlight of this season.
Perfect. I think that just about wraps it up. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you guys.
Jimmy, you're going to get a lot of skiing in?
You know the answer, actually.